Almost a year since the Royal Commission into Child Sexual Abuse delivered its final report, survivors say they're being further traumatised trying to gain compensation. Lawyers say many are rejecting the federal government's inadequate redress scheme and are choosing instead to sue through the courts. But they say some governments and institutions are making that process harder than it should be, so some survivors are slipping through the cracks. And a warning, this story contains images of people who have died.
For Kenneth Stagg, visiting the site of Darwin's Retta Dixon home for stolen generation children brings back painful memories of being sexually abused here. His sister and brother were also abused at the Australian Indigenous Ministries home.
In this cottage here, the tree behind us, this is one of the trees that we used to play in.
They were forcibly taken and kept here as mixed-race children.
I remember playing on the beach, Funny Bay Beach, with my brother and sister, and the welfare coming in their Toyota and taking us from the beach.
They revealed what they suffered to the Royal Commission in 2014.
No one wanted to go to number 2 cottage.
He'd hoped the Commission's report a year ago would open the door to compensation. Viewing the federal government's national redress scheme as inadequate, he decided to sue in court. But he's so angry with the legal system which took him away and allowed him to be abused that he couldn't bring himself to sign paperwork to allow government lawyers to access his medical files. His lawyers, Maurice Blackburn, have had to drop the case.
I'd like to believe that they continue to fight for fair, but they're trapped in the same sources of law that I'm trying to break free from.
It's left him penniless.
I'm the one who will not be recognised. I'm the one who been put one side. So there is no justice for me.
To the children we failed, sorry.
He welcomed the Prime Minister's apology to survivors in October. But he's devastated every time he hears another sexual abuse case in the news.
I've heard this before said, I'm sorry. But is it, I'm sorry this was done, or I'm sorry this will continue?
The Federal Department of Social Services told the ABC it can't discuss individual cases. But it says the National Redress Scheme provides an alternative to court that can compensate people in a timely, simple and trauma-informed way. Compensation lawyers say hundreds of clients around Australia have rejected the redress scheme as inadequate.
And that's around the limit or the cap on redress payment of $150,000 rather than the $200,000 that was recommended by the Royal Commission.
The government says the money offered reflects the lower requirements to produce evidence of abuse. Lawyers are also dismissing the amounts offered for counselling as callous.
The amount available for psychological counselling is dependent on the nature of abuse that you suffered, in particular whether the abuse was penetrative abuse, contact abuse or exposure abuse.
Maurice Blackburn is accusing governments and institutions of playing hardball in court, requiring survivors to see multiple doctors and to confront the abusing institutions in pre-court conferences.
They are survivors of childhood sexual abuse, and this whole legal process can be incredibly re-traumatising for them.
Kenneth Stagg's sister has died, his brother is ill, and he's just been diagnosed with lung cancer.
Hey, what have I got? Nothing, but that's all right.
He's resigned himself to having slipped through the cracks, partly as a result of his own choices. Jane Bardon, ABC News.
And if you or anyone you know is experiencing distress, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14.